Welcome to the Gold Standard, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages here on the 440 Sports Network. I am Braden Gall, and that is Emma Lingan. Good afternoon, Emma. How are you?
I'm well, and a good afternoon to you.
There we go. Now the Sinkers logo is on there. Look, we got a lot of stuff to get to today. Really exciting win over the Colorado Avalanche. It was one of those wins where you're like, this is not happening. I can't believe this is happening. And then they give up a goal with 8 seconds to go. And then they come out with a win. 5 out of 7 now for the Nashville Predators. They had won 4 out of 5 before a total dismantling at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes, down 5-0 at one point in the third period. We're going to discuss all of this. Good UC Saros versus why is UC Saros getting pulled every third game he plays recently, the inconsistency. He was brilliant against Florida, pretty brilliant against Colorado, and 2 great teams, and they get 2 wins and 4 points. 5 out of 7. Where's the consistency? Ozzy Weisblatt, big injury with him, unfortunately, and some players developing and doing some fun things. So we'll get to all of that. And then we've got some scandal talk at the end here. Big story by WMSV about former Nashville Predators owner Herb Fritch and his extramarital behavior. I will try to lay out as much as possible this afternoon on the show, and then open it up for questions. If you, the listening audience, or you, Emma, have any questions, we'll try to answer some of those. I'll just preface all of this with, this is a developing story. There's going to be a lot more coming from a lot of different people and a lot of different outlets, including Lower Broad Hockey. So stay tuned. I will try to give you the Cliffs Notes version today on the show so you can all know exactly what's happening. So that's what we're going to try to do. No opinions, just facts and reporting to try to give you guys what's going on. Okay. Other than that, Sinkers Beverages, of course, our great and amazing local sponsor here in Middle Tennessee and East Nashville. Over 40 years of serving the community. Sign up for the In Crowd. It is a fantastic customer appreciation group that they don't mess with you very much. They'll send a couple emails a year, and you'll get access to really cool bourbon allocations. Maybe if there's a barrel pick happening in the city, they will reach out to their In Crowd members and say, hey, who wants to go with us on this barrel pick? Then you get to go to a distillery and you get to taste like 10 or 12 different bourbons and help Sinkers pick the one they should select to be on their shelves. And then you can come back and buy it later. It's a very cool evening. I've done it a few times. It's outstanding and super fun. So if you like bourbon, sign up for the In Crowd. It's a great way to get involved. Emma, I have I don't know if this might be the most East Nashville dad thing in the history of East Nashville dads. One of my daughter's friends, I've met a bunch of the dads, like all the dads and moms get to know each other, right, with the kids. And one of them is a huge bourbon fan, shops at Sinkers. He does a bourbon advent calendar. You pay him the last week of Thanksgiving, and then he delivers. I don't think I have it with me, but the little like 2-ounce bottles, with the little tops on them, delivers 24 different bottles of different bourbon, unlabeled, to like 8 of our houses, and then sends an email every day with like all the different details. Here are the notes, here's the proof, here's all this stuff, and doesn't tell you what it is, and you have to try to guess all night until the next day. Is that the most East Nashville dad thing you've ever heard of?
Well, I can't say that I'm fully in tune to East Nashville dad culture, but
I mean, you know me.
Like, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a you thing.
Kind of a walking dad cliche.
Yeah, I mean, hey, how have you been doing on this? Have you gotten any of them right?
No, and it's not really to like. This is what makes it really nerdy. It's to grade them blindly, not really to try to guess them. Like the one I did, like on day 2, I didn't really like it, and then I was like, oh, this is 1792, and I don't love a lot of the stuff they do, and I've not really ever drank their stuff since trying it the first few times. It's like, oh, that my palate is somewhat accurate to some degree, so we'll see. But anyway, it's very, very cool. It's tough to like drink. Even if it's just a tiny little taste, it's tough to drink like 2 ounces of bourbon every night. I never thought
that's an East Nashville dad thing to say, right?
I never thought I would say that.
Yeah, I learned this past weekend. I also cannot imbibe the way I used to.
Yeah, there you go.
It's rough out there.
Sinkers Beverages, everybody. If you want to start your own, what would you be? Are you Gen? You're millennial, right? Like young millennial.
Millennial.
Like young millennial female North Nashville bourbon advent calendar. you could go to Go to Sinkers.
I think the Venn diagram for that group would be incredibly small, but yes, now I know where to go. I did actually. We used Sinkers actually for some holiday gifts this year.
Do tell.
But I will see. I don't want to because the people who
they
are receiving
listen?
those gifts may or may not listen to the show. So
Gotcha. Okay,
I don't want to
that's
give
cool.
anything away. Yeah.
So if you need office party stuff, if you need gifts for in-laws, little stocking stuffers for the people you care about, Sinkers Beverages, great place to go. They've got not only all the great drinks, but also non-alcoholic stuff. They've got little barware stuff, little things that you can add to your bar. They got a THC corner. They got gummies. They got everything in there you could ever need to take the edge off, which honestly, in our society today, it's actually quite healthy to just knock the edge off a little bit, slow down that prefrontal cortex just a few minutes each day, interact with the person face to face. I recommend it. And then go watch your Predators. And then get upset again. On national TV, by the way, last night. What do you think of the broadcast crew? Or did you not? Were you there?
I was not there in person, which I'm glad I was not, considering it ended close to midnight. But yeah, I mean, I was actually, I forgot that it was going to be a national broadcast. And then I was all mad. I was about ready to curse FanDuel, which probably still would have been justified because of the product. But I was like, oh, they're actually not broadcasting tonight. So.
I still don't think they have the fast forward button yet, which is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. To not be able to skip all the way, like hold it twice and it goes faster to get to the second period or whatever. But they do have.
I've set the bar even lower. I'm like, if we could just get through a game without it stopping for no reason, that would be nice. Yeah,
my daughters are always like, why is the reception so bad? I'm like, I don't have time to tell you about the size of coax cable and digital streaming platforms. And I will say the 15-minute and 10-minute recaps, though, those are pretty sweet. I'll give them credit for that. Like if I missed one 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about, Ozzy Weisblatt, I can go back and quickly check and quickly watch and get recaps and stuff. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. So they're not totally
NHL. I'm pretty sure the NHL app does that too.
So they're just taking the NHL's app's content and distributing it. I mean, that would make sense.
I don't think it's their content, but I think they do the same kind of thing, like on NHL.com.
I was going to say, there's no way the regional sports networks have the staff to pull down. They've got to be pulling that from. If somebody has the NHL recaps and the FanDuel recaps, check them and see if they're identical. I'd love to see, because if it's the same cuts, then it's clear that they've licensed them to FanDuel, right?
Yeah,
is what I was thinking. Anyway,
yeah.
All right. So UC Saros, to me, he was the story. Unless you want to correct me here, I feel like UC Saros was the story against Florida, and I think UC Saros was the story against Colorado. I think the second story. And this is somewhat about the entire winning 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 7, but mostly the two that we just saw against really, really good competition, one on the road in Florida, was sort of dictating pace, playing with pace. And so I think the two are like, it's Saros and dictating pace, I think, are the reasons they're playing better, the reasons they've won 5 out of 7, and the reason they beat Florida and Colorado. Is that fair to say? Is that how you would qualify? What have you seen from the team in this little chunk of time that says, hey, this is why they're finding some tiny level of success?
Well, Saros definitely, for, as you mentioned, Florida, and then even a game like Colorado where honestly, I thought that Nashville played a very good first period against Colorado, a very not good second period, and then the third period obviously was good until they gave up a goal in the last 8 seconds. But I think that, the fact that they could have easily been down, Nashville could have easily been down by a lot. That's where Saros is the story, I think. Pace as well. One thing I've noticed, though, is like we've started to see a little bit more of Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault show up, which is good. Particularly Stamkos. I think he was, along with Saros, was the story last night against Colorado. The plays that he was generating and he was just everywhere out there. That was probably one of the best games I've seen him play for Nashville. The problem, though, or maybe not a problem, more just observation, is that it almost seems like Stamkos popping off is coming at the expense of other guys. Like Philip Forsberg was kind of invisible. Like we're seeing a lot from that line with Stamkos, O'Reilly, and Evangelista, which is great because Stamkos and Evangelista in particular are two guys that you want to start to see him get going, and they're both doing that. But then it's almost like that's come at the expense of the Forsberg line and their production. Not that they've necessarily been like a liability by any means, but I think that they've been like not taking as many shots, not generating as many chances. They're, playing more defensively. And again, that could be more as just that's what you got to do when you're facing a team like Colorado. But that was just something that kind of jumped out at me last night.
I want to be clear on this conversation because they still only have 7 regulation wins in the entire season. So I just want to point that out just to make sure we're all clear that they did give up 2 goals right away in the first period, that they were atrocious against Carolina. One of the worst games I've seen all season. What was the game? Was it Florida at home that was 8-3? But
Yes.
there was one a couple of weeks before that where you and I came on here and we were like, that's one of the worst games we've ever seen. I can't even remember that. This is the problem. There's too many of them to even remember which one it is.
Was it when the weird one was the Matthew Wood hat trick, but then they got shelled by the Rangers in the same game.
6-3 New York on the road. That was right before they flew out, right? I think. So there's been a handful of them as well. 5-2 Tampa Bay at home was a bad one. Again, this is a concern if we can't really pinpoint the worst nights of the season. But I also want to make sure when things are happening that feel like they're positive developments that we discuss that. And I know, look, we've already got, nice win, but still on that McKenna, Stenberg, Lawrence train, that kind of stuff. So like I get it. Mitch says he always watches the Sportsnet recaps on YouTube because unlike the NHL, they show fights. Good job, Sportsnet recap. I do think we can discuss the Stamkos of it all and getting and all the positive stuff, but inconsistency I think has never been more on display than the last 3 games, which is they are good enough to go on the road to the Stanley Cup champions and play generally pace for pace with them for most of the game. Saros was absolutely brilliant in overtime and in the third period in that game. And then come back here and play a largely even game with what might be the best team in the league right now in Colorado. And then in between, you do what you did against Carolina. So I don't know how to talk about consistency anymore because they're just not good enough to be consistent because great hockey teams are consistent. And this one is simply not.
Right. Well, and first I would say I don't want to take anything away from the win over Florida because like you said, there's a lot to like about that, but also the Florida Panthers of today are not the Florida Panthers that won the Stanley Cup the last 2 years. Sure. They're just not. And that's not their game. All they have to do is get into the playoffs, no matter what seed they are. It doesn't matter how they do in the regular season. It'll be fine. But right now they're very injured and they just haven't. But again, no one's concerned because it's the Florida Panthers. But again, I was more impressed that they were able to really go toe to toe with Colorado. But even then, to your point about consistency, the second period was so bad in that game. Nashville played like it felt like the entire period on the penalty kill because they could not stay out of the box. It's impossible to get any kind of rhythm going offensively when you're constantly playing a man down. So to your point, that lack of consistency, it applies within games too. So it's still not enough. Like even after the win, even after they again played on the whole a very good game against Colorado, because of that second period, the second period and the fact that they gave up a goal with 8 seconds left, those two things, I was like, I didn't even feel good about the win afterwards. That's a win that you should feel good about. That's a team you should feel good about beating, and I didn't. Yeah, no, there's a lot of context in that win that's important to mention. Josh says the Predators have lost 14 games in regulation so far this season. Will Colorado lose 14 in regulation?
all year. Mitch says, is the Stamkos rise and Forsberg drop-off just a result of the fact that the team only has one real top six center? We should discuss that, Emma, but Mitch handles it here. Houston handles it here well. Yes, it's the comment. Yes. I mean, I think that's the case, right? I mean, O'Reilly's just out there buzzing every time. I mean, he's just such a talk about the opposite of inconsistent. And I know he's hard on himself, and sometimes he's talking through the media to other people, etc. But like every single shift, you can kind of predict exactly what he's going to like. He is so consistent on a shift in, shift out basis. It is why he is such a valuable commodity at the trade deadline. And it's why when you put him in, doesn't matter who you put in the middle of, the guys around him are going to start to flourish and generate offense.
Yeah. I mean, you even saw like Gus Nyquist a couple years ago, like had a career year with him and with O'Reilly and Forsberg. And now again, you've got Evangelista starting to buzz. That's exactly what you want. You've got Stamkos starting to buzz. That's exactly what you want. And it's not to take anything away from Forsberg. Obviously, he is an incredible talent, but you need to surround incredible talent with incredible talent. And to that end, and I like the wording there from the comment about this team only has a real top 6C, not even a top line center. O'Reilly is like a 2C on a contender. But that's just the reality of where they're at right now. I was on Sportsnet earlier today talking about this team's center depth, and even talking about it out loud. I was like, oh, that's not good. You've got Tyson Jost, Michael McCarron, Fedor Svechkov, and Eric Holla, which again, all would make fine fourth line centers. The problem is you have 4 of them and you don't have any for your top line. So yeah, I mean, it's tale as old as time, right? With this team, they've always kind of had that issue.
I will say there's one thing that struck me last night watching the game, and then against Florida as well, certainly lacking in the Carolina game, is that they were both really, really entertaining, close, tight, hard fought hockey games. And I just checked this now. They've played in 13 one-goal games out of their 29. But that doesn't include, of course, their empty nets and the other team's empty nets, right? And I don't have that in front of me. I don't know if there's an easy place to find that. I'm sure that there is, but like I assume there's a handful of 2-goal games, both on the winning side of the ledger and the losing side of the ledger, that were really just 1-goal games up until the last 2 minutes where the empty net happens. It feels like at least, and I think I've said this on the show before, that at least there are lots of entertaining and dramatic third periods. That there have been a lot of games where the Preds were in it, they lose. Or it's a tie game and they lose. And there's been a lot of those. And it's hard to say that this is not at least I don't know what to expect entertainment factor for the team on any given game that they get ready to play. Doesn't even matter the opponent. Like, they can destroy Calgary, and they can also get beat by bad teams. They can beat Colorado and Florida, and they can get destroyed by good teams like Florida the last time they played. I mean, just look at the 2 Florida games. So you have to acknowledge, at least if you're a Predators fan, like, are you not entertained at least a little bit? Even if you're okay, even if you're pissed off that the team's not very good, at least it's entertainment in the third period. Most nights it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, you might be playing a little fast and loose with your interpretation of the word entertainment, but I know. Yes, I mean, it's true that more so than last year, I will say that is true, where you feel like they're in games a little bit longer than they were last year. Last year, they give up 1 goal in the first period, and you're like, well, this one's done.
Right.
You don't really feel that this way anymore. You still feel that way, just later in the game. So it's maybe a little bit different, but yeah, I think, I don't know. I do want to go back quickly, just to circle back on the O'Reilly conversation, just because it's something that has been the center of a lot of trade talk. And I just want to remind people that just because a player is someone's most valuable trade asset doesn't mean that he's definitely getting traded. And Barry Trotz setting the price of a first and a blue chip prospect on O'Reilly is his way of saying he's not going anywhere. He's not getting traded unless he wants to go somewhere, and O'Reilly doesn't want to go anywhere. So that's, I think, just important to stand out. People speculating, is he going to get traded? I mean, unless someone offers you like Leon Draisaitl, I don't think Ryan O'Reilly is going anywhere.
And I agree with everything you're saying, except for that last sentence that says, unless Ryan O'Reilly wants to go somewhere, he's not going anywhere. That's the one where I go, this is big boy stuff. These are adults. You got to do what's best for the organization. And if you do get an incredible offer and Ryan O'Reilly says, I don't want to go, sorry, man.
Well, but okay, maybe I should rephrase that. What I'm saying is, like, if it's not a big boy trade, if it's not like anything, then he's going to defer. Trotz is going to defer to O'Reilly and be like, hey, do you want to go to New Jersey or whatever it is? And he would say, no, I'd rather stay here. Now, if Edmonton does come and say, hey, we're going to give you Leon Draisaitl, that's when Ryan O'Reilly is the type of guy that he would be like, you know what? Yeah, you got to do that.
Right.
But the point is that's not happening. So.
Yeah, I think there's two different conversations, which is Trotz has a really high asking price for a reason. He is intentionally inflating the cost of the asset in an effort to either draw out the worst, like the best possible offers, or have a good excuse to keep the player for at least another year. And last week on the show, you kind of convinced me, like, hey, here's the reason. One full year of mentoring players and showing people how to work and shift in, shift out, lead by example kind of stuff is really, really valuable to this team, and maybe more valuable than the difference in the trade assets you would get in return between this year's deadline and next year's deadline. So I could be convinced that keeping him around another year is the right move, as long as you get him, as I think what I said last week was, as long as you trade him at next year's deadline and still get something for him on the expiring contract. But sure. I could be totally convinced that the extra year is absolutely not worth getting rid of from a value standpoint to the current roster and the current locker room. But I think that's a different conversation than, hey, Ryan, will you let us trade you even though we don't have to ask you? Like, that's the part
that's not what I meant. That's not really what I was saying. Okay. I think we're saying the same thing.
Gotcha. All right, so let me see here. A couple comments. Let's see here. This is from Houston. Honestly, I think Ryan O'Reilly doesn't get traded at all. He's almost too important for development over getting a number one pick, a prospect. I think that's what we're saying here. This is why Trotz should be the opposite. Jesse says this is why Trotz should be gone. This has been a problem for his tenure, and he hasn't done anything but hope. Okay, there you go. Nate agrees. Exactly, Jesse. There's too much hope around the organization. Let's see here. Thanks, Emma, for highlighting Trotz can't do anything what's right for the organization. That's not what
Don't think I said that. Also, I would argue Trotz, I'm not going to defend everything Trotz has done. I've said this so many times. But one thing I do have to give him credit for is the way that he's drafted. He's drafted incredibly well. And now, understandably, those picks, they're not here yet because they're not supposed to be.
Oh, Matthew Wood's here.
Yes, Matthew, but he's the first one. He's the beginning of that wave. You're going to start to see more. He's kind of the tip of that iceberg. But the thing is that when you're talking about hope and, all we do is hope. Well, okay, I get what you're saying, but if you look at the pieces that they have coming up through the organization, there's kind of a foundation for that hope. I understand. Now, if you're talking about hope that the guys who are currently on the roster will just wake up one day and turn it around, well, then that's a different story. But I think if you're talking about hope for the future, he has a little bit of a leg to stand on there.
No, I agree. And I would actually count Reed Schaefer and Ozzy Weisblatt, I think, were acquired after David Poile announced he was retiring and Barry Trotz was in the building.
True.
And so I think that because Schaefer was the Ekholm trade and Weisblatt was the Afanasiev trade. So I think you have to sort of like separate like Poile players and Trotz players and say which ones were exclusively Poile and which ones were a little bit Poile, but like Barry Trotz was there. I think anytime Barry Trotz was in the building, which is around January of 2022. Years are running thin on me here.
23. Yeah.
Whenever the sell-off happened with Tanner Jeannot, Ekholm, Niederreiter, that trade deadline, that's where I start the Trotz influence on the roster and the organization from a player personnel standpoint, and that includes Reed Schaefer. So we'll see what happens. one of the things that I was really sticking in my head watching the Colorado game on Tuesday night and talking about like pace of play and sort of like when the Predators get out fast and dictate pace and forecheck and do all the things that we kind of think of as Andrew Burnett's sort of calling card system, which has gotten so much talk over the last 3 years. It really, the thing I keep thinking of is like, why again? What is wrong? What are the tweaks to the system that Andrew Burnett, if he's going to be here all year and next year, what are the tweaks to this system? Why does it take 25 games every year for this team to figure out how to execute it? And I know the roster doesn't match up with, I get all of that, and it's easy to say that. I just, these are all professionals, and most of these guys have been in the system for 2 years, if not 3 years. Why is it taking this long every single year out of training camp to get to the point where I'm watching them against Florida press the pace and press the tempo? And I'm like, why does it take so long for this whole thing to get going? And I'm not a smart enough X's and O's hockey person to know exactly what the answer is. If it's one guy breaking out this way and this player's not learning how to play with this kind of pace and the exit passes are happening this way and then the forecheck goes in, like I don't know enough about it, and I don't want to sound even dumber than I normally sound. So why does it take so long?
I don't know. And that's the frustrating part, is because the whole, it sort of became this almost excuse, like this sort of nebulous concept of, oh, it's the system. Yes. It's so complicated. Oh, we give them, but
like
then
the Matrix hanging over us.
Yes, but I've talked to the players. I mean, like, please explain this to me like I'm dumb. Tell me like I'm 5. Why is this system so hard? And they've all said to me, to a man, it's not anything like impossible to understand. It conceptually, it's nothing crazy. It's nothing that other teams aren't doing, but it's just like, I feel like the unlearning for years and years and years of what you've been doing, that's the hard part. And I think that the whole point of what Trotz wants and why he brought Brunette in and why he keeps talking about this youth movement is that he wants the young kids to grow up in this system. And because it's going to be different if this is all you've ever done your entire NHL or professional career. And all of these veterans have not done that. And so it's like a learning curve. It's like trying to learn a language after your frontal lobe has developed. It's harder.
It's a second learning your first language is 1,000 times easier than learning your second language.
Yes, unless you learn your second language before your frontal lobe is fully developed, then you like retain more of it. There's science to this.
No.
I studied this in college, and this was like yeah. So is it like the Spanish language objectively not that complicated? Everything is pronounced exactly how it's spelled. Like it's not anything weird or hard to grasp as a concept.
Except for those X's. Those X's are real hard.
Okay. All you've ever spoken your entire life. All you've ever spoken your entire life is English. And then at 30 years old, you have to learn an entirely new language. It's going to take you a minute. And so I'm not saying that is an excuse, but I'm just saying that I don't think it has anything to do. There's no disconnect with like, with the players, we don't know how to do this. We don't get it. It's just like muscle memory.
What you're saying is you can't teach an old winger a new system. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, not successfully. Anyway.
Well, but what's interesting is I don't necessarily disagree with your point on this, and I think you're right to say all of this. And certainly, a player who is raised in the system will be more comfortable with executing it after muscle memory and reps. My initial reaction to that is an enormous wager that Barry Trotz is making on unproven players with an unproven coach and an unproven system that are all going to work out together. Trust us in 3 years. That's a huge wager. And while we do have some moments of factual success in Andrew Burnett's first system in the second half of the season, the 18-game winning streak, I thought they played a really good series against Vancouver. They were outmatched talent-wise in that series, and I thought they played pretty well in that series. Had a chance to take it to 7 games. Probably should have, frankly. The one that my daughter got to go to was the devastating Brock Besser goal. But anyway, people don't forget. It's a huge wager without any. It feels like playing poker, and I know to some degree hiring coaches in the NHL and any sport is a wager. I get that, but man, you're putting the entire organization's future on one thing and one thing only, and that is that this system will work in the future with these players, and all of it has to be perfect for it to actually lead to a championship caliber team. And that's just an enormous wager. That's not a traditional strategic approach by other NHL teams.
I agree, but I think as of right now, we have you can't really say it's a bad wager yet. Just it is a big wager. It's an enormous wager, but it's the pieces that are going to be critical to this haven't arrived yet. And so right now, Barry Trotz can comfortably say, at least comfortably to him, say, trust us, this is going to work. But understandably, fans are not buying that, and they're impatient, and they have every right to be.
So what's up with Saros then from a consistency standpoint? Like, how is it? And I know hockey is super weird and that you can go on a Sunday night, play a brilliant hockey game, just be completely on it, see the puck so well, your movements are perfect, and you're on top of it. Some of that, of course, is the opponent and the defense, and just some nights you're just in the zone. You know, some basketball players will go 12 of 13 from behind the arc or whatever. Like, I get it. Sometimes you just have a night like that. And then to come back and do what they did against Carolina, this has been the concern with Saros, is that he has these chunks of time where you're like, oh, that's the old guy. There he is. It looks good. And then he has these moments where it's unlike anything you've ever seen from him. And he got pulled, I want to say, 4 or 5 times last year. I don't remember, but I remember us talking about it. He's already been pulled a few times this year. Like, I don't know how to talk goaltending consistency. It's so hard to predict, it feels like, from game to game.
Yes, and you know what? Just like the saying goes, like sometimes you run into a hot goalie. Like sometimes, what are you going to do? You run into a hot goalie. Well, sometimes you run into a very cold goalie too. Like the same thing happens both ways, especially when you have so many games in a season. They're tightly compacted together this year, especially not only because of the Olympics, but the Preds and their global series too. It's been a weird schedule. It's clear they don't really trust Justus Ananen yet, and they don't really have a reason to, because his starts this year haven't been very good. And I think that, look, here's what I'm not saying. First of all, what I'm not saying is that if a goalie has a bad night, that it's never his fault. That's not what I'm saying. However, there's a lot more nuance that goes into it. Yes, the goalie stops the pucks. That's his one job. So if he doesn't do his one job, then it's easy to argue, well, that's that. But I think that with goalies, if you're looking at a goalie performance with this team in particular, after watching them enough over the last 3 years, my first question, if I see a goalie gets pulled, first of all, in general, goalie getting pulled doesn't always mean the goalie is having a bad night. I feel like that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not always the goalie is bad if the goalie gets pulled. If the goalie's been scored on 6 times for reasons that may or may not, have to do with him, then they're going to pull him. But again, I think it's important to look at it that way. But then also,
when I think about on 38 shots in 50 minutes is different than being pulled after giving up 5 goals on 12 shots in one period. Those are 2 different things.
Yes, but okay, but yes, they are. But also, I will say, like, maybe, I don't know, if you're talking about, like, maybe they've given up 6 goals in 12 shots, and 5 of those goals were power play goals because the team can't stay out of the box. Then it's like, okay, is that entirely on the goalie? I mean, yes, he needs to stop the goals, but it's like, also, you shouldn't be giving up 6 power play goals as a team. So that's one thing. But I think the point with this team that I always look at is like, okay, what did the defense do? How's the defense playing in front of them?
Sure.
Not just the defensemen, but the defensive play of the forwards as well. And I think that with this team in particular, that plays so much into Juuse Saros. You have to let him see the puck to stop it. And again, I'm not saying that he's can do no wrong and that nothing is ever his fault or anything like that. I'm just saying that so much of this falls on the defensive play of this team because, again, I think we were all burned, or at least I was, by last year, watching last year's travesty. So that's my first thought is like, oh, Saros gets pulled. What happened? What happened there? Like, was he, maybe he missed some easy ones, but did he see the puck? Just, I don't know, things like that. It's so much more nuanced than that. And I just hate how often it gets put on the goalie. And I'm not even just talking about Saros. I mean, in general, the goalie takes a lot of heat, similar to head coach. Oh, the team's bad, fire the coach. Like, it's a lot of it. It's more nuanced than that.
Josh says the funny thing about hockey systems is that the best ones have really good goalies.
Not always.
Well said.
Not always, though. I mean, look at Colorado when they won the cup however many years ago now. I mean,
how about Wedgwood's play though so far this season? Like,
Wedgwood is if the season ended today, according to, I believe, BetMGM, he would be in top 5 for Vezina consideration, which I think is amazing.
I love
it.
Talk about the whole like Preds go on elsewhere to do good things.
But that one, like, Preds fans, you can't even be mad about that because this is not supposed to happen.
No, you signed a free agent. You signed a free agent as a rental for a year or two, and you flipped him for a potential prospect that could grow into something on your team. Now, it hasn't happened that way, but like, I don't have a problem with the move. Is Burnett's system just a derivative of Quenneville's? I don't know enough to answer that question personally. If so, doesn't the immediate success of Anaheim's young roster give some hope for the future of the Predators?
Yes. And that's why I'm saying that's what I'm talking about when I said earlier, people are mad. Oh, he's trying to sell us on hope. Now, as I've said before, could Trotz's messaging use some work? Of course. But it's not like he's, building this on a foundation of cotton candy. Like, just trust and good vibes. Like, there's reason to believe. There's a reason to have hope. Now, it's hard to say that. It's hard to look at the current roster and think that. I fully agree. There's no reason to have hope that Steven Stamkos is going to wake up tomorrow and score 50 goals. Like, there's no hope in that.
I thinking through this comment from Mitch and sort of like because you're not wrong about how you're analyzing it. I just would love for 1 second for Barry Trotz to step to like a conference or a press conference or in an interview and just say, yeah, everybody, we're just trying to do exactly what the Ducks have done, and we're going to try to copy Joel Quenneville. I just think, like, if you just came out and said, we want to be the Anaheim Ducks and copy Joel Quenneville, it's like you could not pick two things that Predators fans hate more.
Well, he's never going to say that.
No, of course not, but it would be so funny. Like, it would just be so good. Sinkers Beverages, everybody, make sure you check out Sinkers Beverages. 40 years, over 40 years, of course, of serving the East Nashville community. You can search Uber Eats this weekend and have that booze delivered directly to your house. So search Sinkers on Uber Eats and have the booze delivered to your house, whatever party you've got going on. Great stocking stuffers, great holiday gift idea. Also, just a great place to go shop regularly. You sign up for the in-crowd. They have all kinds of free tastings on weekends, generally from Thursdays through Saturdays. They have like setups in there, whether it's wine or tequila or bourbon or THC stuff. They always have vendors in there to kind of give away free stuff. So make sure you go swing by and check out what they've got. Try some stuff, get some samples. And of course, huge wine selection, award-winning walk-in beer fridge, 5-time liquor store of the year in East Nashville. Make sure you check them out. Anything you're going to learn over the next week? We got St. Louis on Thursday night at home at Colorado, and then St. Louis on the road on Monday before we get back to you guys on Wednesday. That's 2 against St. Louis, who is quickly entering the running for worst team in the Western Conference. So we want to lose these games? We want the team to lose these games, or what are we rooting for here, fam?
I mean, it depends on what you want. I mean, a lot of fans, I think, are very much in the tank for McKenna mindset right now, although I am contractually obligated to remind you all once again that finishing last in the league does not guarantee you the first overall pick. So I don't know. I think that you have to win these games if you're Nashville. I think they're still in the, we can't be as bad as these guys. We can't. Like, this is, I look at St. Louis, honestly, as a cautionary tale, because they've always been one of those teams that, very much like Nashville for a long time, has been right on the edge of, well, we're good.
Yeah.
Like, we're good enough to make it into the playoffs, maybe, or at least get close, but we're never going to fully commit to selling. We're never going to, do anything like that. But I think last year was a fluke for them. I mean, it worked out well, but I think now you're starting to see this is what happens when you don't do anything. Like, you don't pick a direction. Trotz at least picked a direction. It was the wrong one, but he picked one 2 years ago when he got Stamkos and those guys. But this is what happens with St. Louis, is you do nothing for too long. And now Doug Armstrong is kind of a lame duck with this being his last year. So I just think that these are the teams, if you're Nashville, you have to beat, just for purposes of showing, look, we have a direction.
I think the big one for me is Saros over these next three. I don't know how. I mean, obviously there's off times in between each game, so he could play all three of them in theory. Obviously, a brilliant performance against Colorado, 970 win save percentage against Florida, just absolutely awesome. 960 against Calgary in that win. Was pretty solid against Chicago. I know that he gave up the save percentage wasn't there necessarily. Was very, very good in Colorado's match in the loss to Colorado a couple of weeks ago. Also has been pulled 3 times in 10 games. So, like, we just got to see which one he is. And if he can start, like, he's won 4 out of 5 starts. And so if we can see some consistency from the goaltender, and then the defense starts to kind of continue to kind of develop in front of him, I think there's a path for them to win some games if that's what you're rooting for. And so we'll see. I think Saros over the next 3 is something I want to see. So we'll see what happens. 2 against St. Louis, 1 against Colorado, 3 in the division. We'll see what happens. All right. So last one here, we'll get into this Herb Fritch thing, and it's not like a particularly fun topic to discuss. So if you guys do have questions, I will try to answer as many as I can. It is a developing situation. It is unfolding kind of in real time, and I think will continue to unfold over the course of the next weeks and months about all of this. Let's start with first and foremost, who is Herb Fritch, for those who do not know, who have not been around the team for a very, very long time. In 2007, Craig Leopold was shopping the team to a Canadian business person and was going to sell the team. He was going to move them to Ontario, to Hamilton in Canada. There was a Save the Preds rally downtown with governors and mayors and sports talk radio hosts and Gover. And they're all there. And a bunch of people come together to kind of create a ownership group to purchase the team from Craig Leopold to keep them here. There were some controversial relationships inside of that ownership group, just as a point of like kind of contextual background, right? There's been lawsuits between a few of these people like that don't even involve Herb Fritch. At the time in 2007, for the sake of this conversation, what you need to know is that Herb Fritch bought roughly 37% of the team. So a substantial owner in the original group ownership days. Tom Sigerin took over as the chairman. Has his own problems from a business practice standpoint. I believe Herb Fritch continued to acquire ownership stake as it unfolds. There was some infighting amongst different parts of the ownership group. And I think in 2019 gains control of the board as not only the majority owner, but also the chairman sort of the board as well. So, and then over the course of the last 3 years has been selling off pieces. The group has been selling off pieces for roughly $880 million to former Governor Haslam, who is now the majority owner. The last round of that sale was this year, earlier in the spring and the summer. So that's kind of the ownership structure that you need to know about over the course of this plan. So a story on WSMV Channel 4 dropped last week or 2 weeks ago. This is Judge Considers Unsealing Lawsuit Against Former Nashville Predators Owner. And this stemming from illegitimate children that allegedly Herb Fritch had outside of marriage with a woman who worked in his house. Not the woman who worked in his house, but the woman who worked in his house's daughter at the time. There are 2 children born in 2010 and 2012, right after Herb Fritch took ownership of the team, that are, you can do the math on how old they are now, that apparently Herb Fritch and his lawyers, according to the report, paid off the daughter's then husband to claim the children legally on their birth certificates in signed agreements. So he is paying off this guy to not be publicly the father of these children. You can think of any number of reasons why to do that, right? Which is number one, not the least of which is you are a very public figure in Nashville, Tennessee. You don't want this. It's a cover up from that standpoint. Also important, and I think this is where the lawsuit comes in, Herb Fritch sold HealthSpring in 2012 for $3.8 billion. He's paying $40,000 or $400,000 to this one guy and $40,000 payments in the months for child support. Those children are owed potentially millions of dollars in all of this. So if you want to, that's sort of the story that WSMV reports. There's a lot more to this because, again, it's unfolding as we speak. But this is Herb Fritch is now married for the third time. The first two marriages allegedly ended for infidelity and a variety of quote deviant sexual behavior. I don't even know what that means, but the documents have been sealed, and that's part of what this lawsuit's all about. So there is a track record of behavior of sort of some creepy stuff from this one particular very, very wealthy and very powerful man in our community, again, with a woman working in his house's daughter. I want to make sure we're clear on that. The relationship he's living with his third wife. There's a woman working in his house, and he begins the relationship with the woman's daughter, and then has two children, and then covers up the kids, and then doesn't pay them all the child support that they are owed. That's the alleged lawsuit and the unfoldings of everything that's going on. I don't think it has anything to do with the sale of the team or the purchase of the team. I don't think any of this has to do with, like, the timing of the Haslam stuff is not because of the timing of, like, I think actually the sale and the buy, it's all unrelated from what I understand. I'm sure there are questions about this. Maybe you guys have no questions. But it is worth noting that this is happening, that the coverage of Herb Fritch, which has largely been thank you for helping save our team, which is true. And Emma, you hear me say this all the time. Two things can be true. You can be an instrumental figure in saving the Nashville Predators and keeping that organization here in town, and also have behaved in a really creepy, disgusting, and potentially illegal way. Those two things can be true at the same time. So I just think you just never know about people. And we got to be careful with how we talk about this because it's still unfolding. But I don't know if you have any questions. I don't know if there's any comments. I don't know if there's any reaction. I don't know if the Predators should have known about this stuff. That's a whole other angle to all of this. I don't think they necessarily should have. But I'm fascinated where this goes because I don't think it's going to end particularly well for Fritch in all of this.
No, I mean, like you said, it's certainly not something you want to speculate on or opine on, at least as of this point, while it's all still sort of unfolding, all still developing. I just, maybe of note that Herb Fritch, when he's still a minority owner, worth pointing that out.
Very important to note that. Yep.
So he's not gone altogether. He's just no longer the majority owner. But even when he was the majority owner, always preferred to not be like a vocal, a front-facing, a public-facing owner. He just kind of wanted to be the checkbook, I guess, and was like, didn't ever want to do any like public engagements and didn't, want to be forward-facing on the state of the team. And again, that's not fair to speculate. Well, now we know why, but I think it's just worth noting. Also, with regard to him selling the team, everything that I knew from, within the organization, from talking to people when I worked there, is that he, again, it was not really a passion project for him to own a hockey team. It was not that he didn't want it, but it's more just like that's a big part of why he wouldn't do a lot of public engagements. He didn't want to be the face of all of this. Like, he just kind of wanted to foot the bill. And so when it comes to that, his decision to give up his majority ownership, I think a lot of it had to do with that. I think a lot of it also had to do, he had some health issues as well, some physical health issues that were ongoing. I genuinely don't know any specifics beyond that, but I think the point is that I don't, I just want to sort of reiterate what you're saying, that I don't think we need to be drawing lines on the bulletin board to, oh, well, that's why he gave up the majority ownership. I genuinely don't think they're connected.
No, I honestly, what I would say is I don't know if they're connected, because this lawsuit started, I think, in 2022 to some degree, some parts of it, and that is when Haslam stepped in. I think Haslam would have asked to buy the team no matter what. I think that was his plan all along. It was a convenient off-ramp potentially for Herb Fritch, knowing that this stuff is potentially looming. I don't know if he knew, when he knew, what he knew. What I do know, and I can't report on specifics of this, I do know this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened with Herb Fritch. And this is like, there is a 30 to 40 year track record of behavior that involves more than just this. Well before his current marriage, well before owning the Predators, well before all of this. And so, Josh asked a good question, a couple of good questions here, which is this something the rest of the ownership group would have known about? Now, I don't know. The answer for me directly right now at this point is I don't know. I don't know if it's something they should know about. I'd like to believe that you should have vetted your co-owners in some way, shape, or form. I also know that you can't be in everyone's bedrooms. Like, you can't, nor do we want to be. So I just, you can't know what everybody's doing all the time. Could this force him to sell is also another thing. I have been told that the NHL didn't know anything about this, that they are unaware, but I do know that owner groups and league offices absolutely would look at a minority owner and not publicly, but maybe privately say, you got to figure out a way out of this organization, especially if there's more stuff coming that could be very salacious and or damaging to the organization in some way, shape, or form. So who knows? We also don't know where the tentacles of this all go. Who else could be implicated? We just don't know. So I want to reiterate that we are in the very early stages of this unfolding. And again, all of this stems from not paying proper amounts of child support for illegitimate children, which, again, I don't judge people for having affairs. I don't judge people for doing I really struggle with that part of this, because it's like, look, if you have a consenting adult, two people doing what they want to do, I don't think that somehow makes you some piece of trash. I think according to the report, he has withheld millions of dollars from his children, which is pretty awful. and this is what I'm trying to figure out. We do not know the age of the woman when they first started their relationship. And that is also a pretty critical piece of information. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I think you should stay tuned to Lower Broad Hockey is what I will say.
Yeah, because honestly, not a lot of people are talking about this right now. I mean, even since the report came out, you're not seeing a lot about it. But actually, the more you read into it, the more you look into it, you're like, oh, this could, like you said, the tentacles could be reaching a lot farther, I think, than we even currently realize.
And I now have lawyers on retainer, which is really scary for a small business. So we'll see. Let's see here. Patrick says it's weird that when it's ownership, it's handled differently than when it's a player. You think that's weird, or you think that's the law of capitalism in this society? He who has the gold makes the rules. Unfortunately, that's where we live.
Money talks.
Do we all think that child support for like a person making 60 grand is treated the same as the person making $1 million or $2 million or $1 billion? Do we think that people that have lawyers can just win in divorce court and people that don't have lawyers can't? Because that's kind of how it feels like. Yes, Houston, that's what it is. It's FU money is what it is. And Herb Fritch has FU money, which means I need a lawyer to make sure we're doing everything properly from a journalistic ethics standpoint. That's all I'm talking about here. All right. Keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it. There's going to be stuff happening. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in all of this. But it's not a fun story to report on. That's for sure. So it's pretty gross, actually. Emma, I don't know how we end on a high note here, but tell me what you're doing this weekend. How's Minka doing? Did Minka made it through the whole episode, and she's doing okay?
She's sleeping in the corner of the room. She didn't. I was worried she was gonna get. She got her new bark box came in yesterday, and there's this little hot chocolate toy with the marshmallow that comes out, and the marshmallow squeaks, and so that was a big concern that was gonna become a thing during this episode. But she appears to be sleeping. So
what is a bark box?
It's a monthly. This is, you talked about your Nashville dad thing. This is my most millennial woman thing.
It sounds like a millennial woman, single millennial woman thing.
I pay $25 a month.
Okay, that's not bad.
It's really not, because I get 2 toys and 3 bags of treats.
Does she go through toys? Like, is she one of those dogs that'll just chew the shit out of everything?
She
like rips it up into.
She used to be. Now it's weird. She has this thing about like whatever part of the toy is like not even an integral part of the toy. That's what she goes after. Like on this hot chocolate mug, there's like a little handle, which is just like a piece of fabric that hangs off the side. She's going to town on that thing. Doesn't really care about the rest of it. She had like a margarita toy at one point that had like white fuzz around the rim that was supposed to be the salt. She would just like eat off all of the salt and then leave the toy. I was like, all right. So
my old dog Henry there was literally not a toy that he wouldn't destroy, and then I think we found those red Kongs, right? And it's like the only thing that he couldn't just sit down and destroy. And he didn't even have half his teeth, because when we found him on the side of the road, he was missing like all of his he missed all of his bottom teeth, like on one side for most of his entire life. So all of the 13 years we had him, they were all gone, and he would still use the other side and destroy everything.
So that's how Minka's favorites are, though. I think the brand is called Benabone, and they're like it's, you know, not real bone, but it's like chicken flavored or peanut butter flavored or whatever. She goes to town on those things, and I've discovered them when she was a puppy, because they really, like, when she was a puppy, she was chewing on everything. She was teething, and she still likes them and still goes to town on them. But the last time I took her to the vet just for like a checkup, they were like looking at her teeth. They're like, you know, she has a broken tooth back here. And I was like, nope.
And she's a lot. She's got a lot of lab in her, right? Or she's a lab?
No. Shepherd.
Normally labs won't complain about anything. They'll just.
Oh no, she'll complain. Listen, she'll complain. If something's really bothering her, she will send me to the emergency vet in the middle of the night because her back hurts. Meanwhile, I can't remember the last time my back didn't hurt, and I just.
I'd give my dog some THC beverage and tell him to suck it up, lay down.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do now.
Literally,
now I give her a trazodone, and she is on another planet for about 24 hours. It's great.
My dog's name is Willie Nelson. Like, he is already just a space cadet. Like, he just acts like he's already walking around in outer space already. So, all right, everybody. Sinkers Beverages, please go support good local business. Lower Broad Hockey for if you want to track some stories. Nick Kieser's over there writing good stuff. Do appreciate him. And of course, Emma Lingan all over the internet. You can read her stuff. You can listen to her stuff. And of course, go support her on the social medias as well. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening. Let's see what UC Saros can do over the next couple of games. I think it'll be very interesting to see if he's consistent and they win a few more games. Maybe they actually have turned a corner. Maybe there actually is progress being made with the system and the buy-in and the development and all that stuff. So we shall see. Otherwise, that just about does it for us. For Emma, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.